creator of this series and the owner of Kelso Homes. I just want to welcome you here today. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like it's been forever since I have been up here, which it kind of has. I want to just give a huge thank you to both my team, all of the educational partners outside, both my assistants, both Shari and Stephanie, and also a huge shout out to Shari Cooper, who all carried the show last month so that I could get with my husband, which was really nice. So just a quick round of applause. It feels, as you can imagine, a lot of preparation goes into each and every single one of these presentations, and so it feels really good that I have people that I can trust to put those on if for any reason I can't be here. So that has been wonderful. As today, we are actually the coffee sponsor for Kelso Homes. So as much as I am up here on stage on a regular basis, maybe not all of you know actually what we do. So I started my special real estate brokerage just over a year ago to specialize in helping older adults who are downsizing or moving to communities. And we do it in a super unique way that almost no one else does, where instead of just assisting you with being your expert in real estate, that we are looking at the big picture and have the ability to help you with every aspect of that transition and not just the real estate part. So we look at, where you're going, legally, financially, do you have your things up to date? Are there things that need to be done that make that transition easier? What are we going to do with your stuff? What are the things that are going to fit in your new place? We can oversee the packing, the move, the house cleanup, any of the prep of the house, all the way down to handing over the keys to a new buyer. And we can do that within about an hour and a half of Grand Rapids. So myself and my team work all over West Michigan. So if you have anyone that has needed those services, we'd love to talk with you. You can, hire us for as much or as little as you want if you've got family members that are going to be helping you. So just wanted to do a quick shout out for that. So for today's talk, with every talk that I do, it's always usually, I try and do some version of, savvy this, savvy that, just to keep it fun and in perspective. And today is Savvy Social Security, but the bigger part of this presentation is the second tagline of that. And that is creating a strategy for financial peace. Because isn't that what we all want? At the end of the day, we work our whole lives for, hopefully, some version of financial peace. And while we all know that, money absolutely does not bring happiness, what it does bring us, usually, is choices and options. And that can be really helpful. And the idea that we have worked so hard, whether it be working hard outside of your home for many years at a career, maybe it's working hard inside your home while you were taking care of the household and raising children while you had a spouse that was out earning a living to pay your bills. And then this idea that that could all possibly not accomplish what it was designed to accomplish because you haven't planned properly. Maybe you unfortunately went through a divorce. Maybe you lost your spouse prematurely to a death. We just never know. Maybe, unfortunately, you were the victim of a scam. And how terrible is that to work so long and then not end up with what you've worked so hard for? The other thing I want to address today is this idea that there can be a prevailing belief that finances are private and that it's a taboo subject to be able to talk about that. And the truth and the reality is that when you are planning your life, it's important to know the details of your financial picture and to share it with the people that are appropriate to help you. In addition to that, if you have somebody that you are directly involved in their care and their care choices, it's equally as important that you have full knowledge of their full financial picture. Because let's face it, that financial picture is what's driving those choices. And so I just want to dispel any myths that this has to be a private subject. This whole series is about starting a conversation. And often starting a conversation about things that can be difficult to discuss and yet important and critical to everyone's health and safety. So I want to keep this really brief because we've got a ton of information to share with you today, and I'm sure you're going to have your own questions at the end of this. So without any further ado, I'm going to have each one of our wonderful speakers introduce themselves today, and then we're going to hop right into questions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hillary Patch. I am a public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration.
Good morning. This is Shari. I'm Shari. I am Shari Cooper. Many of you already know me, and it's a pleasure to be up here and to talk with you today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cottrell, and I'm with Legacy Estate Planning and Elder Law. And we added the elder law in there because other firms I've been with will say estate planning and say, well, we didn't know you did elder law. So we thought if we put it in our name, people might know that we do it.
Good morning. I'm Matt Wezeman. I'm the fraud response officer for Mercantile Bank. Happy to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome to all of you. I'm just so pleased to have such a literal arsenal of smart people here with us today to answer your questions. So we're going to start with Hillary. So Hillary, I'm so excited to have you here today. Recently, I was able to participate in an online training that Hillary had done, and it reminded me how Social Security can be so much more complicated than it initially seems. I really kind of thought I got it with like, okay, it's just this matter of figuring out, what age do I want to start it at and how is that going to mathematically translate to my goals? Well, I'll just say that I left that webinar like, holy cow, I have so much to learn. So we're going to start with just some basic questions of how does a person qualify to receive retirement benefits through Social Security, especially if they took time off from the workforce for raising kids or for some other reason.
So this is typically how we start each conversation, each presentation is with just the basics. So how does someone qualify for a Social Security benefit? And you qualify for Social Security by working and paying Social Security taxes. To receive a Social Security benefit, you have to have 40 credits, which is 10 years of work. So again, you're earning credits by working and paying those Social Security taxes. And to earn a credit, it is based on a gross dollar amount, and this amount changes every year. So in 2025, to earn 1 credit, you need to earn $1,810 in gross earnings. The maximum number of credits you can earn per year is 4. So that's why you have to have 10 years of work, because that's 40 credits. So for example, for this year, to earn all 4 credits, you would need to make at least $7,240 in gross wages. And it doesn't matter if you make all of that in 1 month or if it takes you the course of the entire year. Once you have reached that number, you have earned your 4 credits. One thing to know about those credits is when you earn them, you never lose them. So for example, if you're someone that started out in the workforce, working maybe at a younger age, and then you leave the workforce for a significant amount of time to take care of family or to attend to any needs where you are leaving the workforce, when you re-enter later on, any credits that you have are still there. So when you earn those credits, you never lose those credits. How we determine what your monthly benefit amount is going to be is based on your earnings over your entire lifetime. So it's a 3-step process that we use. We call it indexing, where we look at your earnings over your entire lifetime, and then we use a computation where we basically give a higher value to your actual earnings. And that's the piece that's called indexing. And then from there, we pick out your 35 highest earnings years and use that in a computation to determine what your monthly benefit amount is going to be. So if you're someone that doesn't have 35 years of work, that's totally fine. Let's say you only have 20 years of work. That means we would use all 20 years in the computation, but we're also going to use 15 zeros because we always use 35 years in that calculation. And if you're someone that has more than 35 years of work, let's say you have 40 years of work, we're going to pick out those highest 35 earnings years when we determine what your monthly benefit is going to be.
Great. So what is the earliest age that somebody can start collecting Social Security? And does that benefit amount go up in equal increments with each additional month until they reach their maximum benefit? Or are there such things as different thresholds in the meantime?
So this question can get a little complex. First of all, the earliest age that any of us can start receiving Social Security is age 62. But the longer you wait to file for a benefit, the higher your benefit will be. So once you reach your full retirement age, you will receive 100% of your Social Security benefit. So when you're under full retirement age, the percentage that you receive will just depend how old you are at the time you start collecting benefits. Again, each month that you wait to file, the higher your benefit will be. But when you're under full retirement age, it's not equal percentages. So, for example, if you're more than 36 months younger than your full retirement age, each month that you delay increases your benefit by 5/12%. So it just depends on where you are when you're under full retirement age. Now, once you reach full retirement age, that's when you receive 100% of your Social Security benefits. And then if you delay, so you can wait until after full retirement age. From the time you're full retirement age up until age 70, you can earn what we call delayed retirement credits. So your benefit is going to increase even more. Once you reach age 70, your benefit does not increase anymore based on your age, so there'd be no point in delaying and filing once you reach age 70. I know this is a ton of information, especially when you talk about, those little percentages. If you wanted to know what your benefit amount is going to be and get those estimates, if you go to our website, ssa.gov, you can create a My Social Security account, and through your account is where you can get that information to compare what your benefits would be at different ages or at different dates or times of when you want to start collecting those benefits.
You guys got all that right? Okay, so if you could clarify what is the current full retirement age, but also how does that change for people that were born prior to 1960?
So your full retirement age is based on your year of birth. If you go back one slide, there's a chart that has full retirement ages on it. There we go. So for individuals born 1960 or later, full retirement age is age 67. So that means at age 67, those individuals are going to receive 100% of their Social Security benefit. If they start collecting early at 62, again, that's the earliest that any of us can collect, you can see their percentage there is 70%. And then if they wait until age 70, the benefit increases, they're earning those delayed retirement credits, the benefit is 124%. So individuals that were born prior to 1960, their full retirement age, it's just going to depend on their year of birth. So this year, individuals that were born in 1959, when they're filing for Social Security benefits, their full retirement age is age 66 in 10 months. And then if you just reference this chart, again, you can see what the differences are there based on your year of birth.
Okay, so I'm sure that we have a lot of women out there that might have taken time off to work and care for children at home, or possibly never even worked outside the home. So can you give a simplified version of how divorced or widowed spouses can qualify and receive benefits?
So a simple example is always hard to do, but I think I can do that. So in order to collect a benefit on your own work record, again, you need 40 credits. If you don't have any credits though, that's okay in order to get a benefit as a spouse, as a divorced spouse, as a widow, or a divorced widow. When we are determining if someone is eligible for a spousal benefit or an ex-spousal benefit, if they are due benefits on their own work record, they do have to collect benefits on their own record first before they can be entitled to a spousal benefit or an ex-spousal benefit. So the maximum benefit that a spouse or an ex-spouse can receive is 50% of the worker's benefit at the worker's full retirement age. There is a reduction for early retirement. Again, if your own benefit is less than 50% of your spouse's benefit at their full retirement age, you can receive a combination of the two to equal 50%. But if the benefit on your own record is higher than 50%, you can only get benefits on your own record. You cannot collect until your spouse starts collecting. And if you are married, your marriage has to have lasted at least 1 year to get a spousal benefit. For an ex-spousal benefit, the marriage must have lasted at least 10 years. So an example of this would be if my husband, let's say my husband at his full retirement age, or my ex-husband, his benefit at full retirement age is $2,000. The most that I can receive is 50% of that. So the most I can get is $1,000. That's if I start collecting at my full retirement age. If I start collecting early, there's going to be a reduction. The reduction will just depend on how old I am at the time I start collecting. But let's say I'm due benefits on my own record as well. So if the benefits on my own record are more than 50%, let's say my benefits are $1,200, I cannot collect that spousal benefit or that ex-spousal benefit because the benefits on my record are over that 50% amount. But if the benefits on my own record are less, let's say $700, that means I can collect $700 off of my own record, plus an additional $300 as the spousal benefit or the ex-spousal benefit, and the combination of the two equal 50% of my husband's or my ex-husband's. If we are married, I have to wait for my husband to file and collect benefits in order for me to collect off of his record. If we are divorced and we've been divorced for at least 2 years, I do not have to wait for him to file and collect off of his record. As long as he is at least 62 and eligible for benefits, I can collect those ex-spousal benefits off of his record. When we talk about benefits for widows or divorced widows, the percentage that you receive just depends on how old you are at the time you start collecting. So you can collect a benefit as a widow, widower, ex-widow, or widower as early as age 60. So if you start collecting that benefit at age 60, the percentage is going to be at its lowest. So you would receive 71.5% of the worker's benefit at the time they passed away. Once you are full retirement age, if you start collecting that widower's benefit or the benefit as the ex-widow, widower, it would be 100% of that payment that the person was receiving at the time they passed away.
Okay, I'm going to throw in one quick question because with all that complexity, and thank goodness we're heading into financial planning with Shari after this, is there somebody at the Social Security office who you can sit down with in person, who can actually run some scenarios for you to help you determine, or is it simply you sitting behind a computer on your SSA Gov account trying to mess with those crazy numbers?
So it depends what type of benefits you're going to be applying for or that you're getting information on. So all of the information about your own benefits, your retirement benefits, are available online through that My Social Security account. So if you want information about your own benefits, we are directing individuals to go online to create that account to get information about their own retirement benefits. But if you need information about benefits, like ex-spousal benefits or survivor benefits, that information is not available online. So then I would tell individuals to contact their local Social Security office to obtain that information. Most of the time, just calling the local Social Security office directly, you can speak with someone over the phone, or if you would like to schedule an appointment, you can do that as well. We're operating under an appointment-based service model, so you can't just walk into the office anymore and say, I'm here to get information, I'm here to file for benefits. We do require individuals to have an appointment when they're visiting their local Social Security office, so you definitely want to have an appointment for that.
Very good to know. So with people living longer, many people are choosing to actually continue working into their later years. What are the limits that someone can earn while they're receiving benefits before they start making too much and their benefits get reduced?
So the earnings limit, this typically changes every year. The information that's on the screen now, these of course are the amounts for 2025. So if someone is going to be receiving a benefit prior to their full retirement age, so this means if it's a benefit, a retirement benefit off of their own record, a spousal benefit, an ex-spousal benefit, a survivor benefit, if you're under full retirement age collecting any of those benefits, the earnings limit for this year is $23,400. And we are only counting income from work. So we don't include any sort of like IRA distributions, casino winnings, lottery winnings. We're just looking at income from work. So again, for this year, someone under full retirement age, if they're collecting a Social Security benefit, the earnings limit is $23,400. If they make over this amount, Social Security will withhold $1 for every $2 that they make over the amount. If this is the year that someone is reaching full retirement age, the earnings limit is $62,160. If someone makes over this amount, Social Security will withhold $1 for every $3 they make over this amount. And then the month that you reach full retirement age, in continuing, there is no earnings limit.
Okay, so that's kind of a good incentive to retire at some point, I would say. So Hillary, is there anything else that you want to add before we move on to Shari?
I would say the best source of information is really going online to our website, creating that My Social Security account. If you want estimates, for your benefit amounts, that's definitely the place to go. It's a really good starting point when you're trying to determine, when to start collecting those benefits. Also, if you're already receiving benefits, it's great to have a My Social Security account because you can do business with Social Security online instead of having to call the local office or call the 800 number. That would be my advice, is having that My Social Security account. And if you don't feel comfortable using online services, or sometimes it can be a little bit tricky creating that online account, you can always call the 800 number or call your local office directly and just make sure that you have an appointment before you go into the local office.
I'm just going to add to that too, for any of you that don't necessarily want to do that online but have somebody else that wants to be your advocate, an adult child. I know for, my mom, I've kept her Social Security stuff online, and I go into that account and look periodically and was able to download her tax documents and things like that. So that is always a wise thing to have set up, even if it's a just in case. Okay, great. So we're going to head on to Shari, who can hopefully help us make heads or tails of everything that Hillary just said. So Shari, you've been doing this a really long time. What are the first steps that you take with a client to help establish some financial priorities?
I think it's really important when I meet with somebody new, as an example in this question, is normally the process would be is if somebody were to call the office, my assistant's going to send you a lengthy email of all of the items that you can bring. Because we don't know what it is that you might have or what would pertain to you versus somebody else. And sometimes it looks really weighty, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get all this stuff together? And sometimes when you come in and you have the documents there and we sit down, the biggest thing that I really want to know before we even turn that page is, what is your story? I know there's gonna be documents and numbers. I know that there's gonna be assets. But ultimately, what I really want to hear from you is, I know everybody in this room is different. I know everybody in this room has a different situation based on where you work, or if you have a spouse, or if you're single, if you have children. There are so many different things that make us all unique and different, and so that's where I need to start. And when you're telling me your story, I'm doing my best to listen. I'm not the greatest at it, but I do know that I need to listen. And when you're telling me those things, I'm trying to figure out from you what is the most important thing to you. And those are your values. What is it that you want to spend your money on? Why have you been saving? And I know that we all save for retirement, but what are you going to do with that time? You've just gained back 8 to 12 hours a day, and now we have to figure out how we're going to use those hours. And that's what I'm listening for, because that's how we plan. That's how I know what you need these dollars for, that you need this time for, who you're going to spend it with. So that's really what it comes down to in that first appointment is we may never even open the documents. Sometimes they get pushed across the table at me and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and get started. But I'm still going to interject certain questions so I can figure out really what it is that we want to discuss and what we can uncover together.
Great. So one of the things in today's introduction, I kind of alluded to the fact that a lot of people think that financial advisors are really only designed for wealthy people who have lots of assets and want to figure out how to use all those assets. What are the ways that you can provide guidance to us mere mortals who are living on a budget?
Well, I would say that there is a solution for everything. I never assume that there is not going to be a solution for a problem. I just need to know what the problem is or what the scenario might be. So I always say, financial advisors don't need people necessarily with money to be helpful. That is not what I go into, what I do every day. That's not what wakes me up and gets me out of bed every day. What it is what motivates me is how am I going to be able to help the people that are coming in today or the people that call me? What are going to be those scenarios, those questions? So this morning, as an example, I'm still in the bathroom putting my makeup on and I get a call at 20 to 8. And I was like, whoo. And I saw the name of the person, and I was just like, I don't have time right now. I've got to get out. I got to get to Savvy Seniors. And so I waved off the call and just let her know I would call her back, and then I started to worry. I'm like, oh no, what if something happened? So then I texted her, and I'm like, is everything okay? And her brother had passed away. And so I was thrilled that she had called me to let me know that this person that was very special in her life, obviously, had passed away. But her question was, because he had lived a couple of hours away and they weren't there when he passed away, somebody else had found him. The sheriff had called, and she had found out in such horrible circumstances that her brother had passed away. She wanted to do an autopsy, but everything had already progressed so far that she needed a probate attorney to be able to get an autopsy. Now, I'm telling you this because what I love is that I tell all my clients, call me with any type of scenario or situation, because if I don't know the answer, if I can't get you the majority of the way there, I have a fabulous team that can help support me. And so I was honest with her. I have never done this before. I didn't know that there was a probate process at this point. But because of one of our savvy partners, our educational partners here with the attorney that is, oh my gosh, which is Nancy Hillary, I work with her all the time, but Nancy had already provided for me an attorney for probate purposes that I had already used, and I had that in my back pocket, so to speak. So I was able to help her out with that situation, but when it comes to these scenarios, whether it's budgeting that we can work on together, whether it's a probate attorney that we might need to work on together, use your financial advisor. Start with them first, and if they can't answer the question for you, they can certainly help you with their back pocket of people that support them on a regular, everyday basis.
And I would just kind of piggyback on that everyone in this room that is an educational partner, I feel like we're very much all wired in that way, where I don't care if it's a real estate question, call me. If I can help you or great, I'll answer that question. If I can't, there's a good chance that I have somebody, just like Shari's talking about, in my tribe that I can then refer them to. And we do referrals back and forth all the time to all different types of resources for people that have nothing to do with our direct business. So that's important that you are aligning with people who can do that for you. And they're not just, if you're giving them a call, they're not just expecting to pick up the phone and get business. It's connecting with a client and seeing how they can help regardless of what it has to do with. So you work with clients of all ages, and what do you do differently when you are working with somebody in their 50s versus their 70s or 80s?
Well, and going back to that last question too, when somebody might come in and feel like they don't have money, that could be somebody in their 20s or 30s. They're building right now. And so, again, there's always a solution, but it might just take us to make sure that we're doing a little more discipline in our budgeting to be able to get some of those basics down. And so, I think I even mentioned this the last time that I was up here a year ago, is some of my favorite clients are the ones that are 18 to 20 that are just in high school or out of high school. If your grandchildren are looking in this room, so I'm going to say grandchildren primarily, if they're interested, I am interested in them. I would love to sit down with them. They have great questions. Sometimes they don't even have questions that I can bring up to them. But usually I'm spending a nice hour to 90 minutes just giving them some information about investing or the markets or what to invest in, how to make it relatable to them. And when they open up a Roth, I mean, they're going to have money one day. They're my future client. And if somebody isn't getting started sooner, then, obviously they're going to have different obstacles in life along the way. So when you're in your 30s to 40s to 50s, I always say those are your years that takes a lot more discipline because life's expensive. And we have to be able to save in the best way that we can and still enjoy life. And so moderation to me is key. I use that a lot. We have to find that balance of living today and saving for tomorrow, because if you binge in any place, you're just going to blow it up eventually. So some of those scenarios might be a young couple came in, they had an opportunity to buy their parents' house. And they really wanted to get this done, and they needed an answer right away. And I stayed late that night to be able to work with them. And it wasn't something that they were necessarily planning for. They had hoped to sell their house in a couple of years, but the opportunity came up. So those are the things that you're doing in your 30s or maybe 40s, and having a family and saving for college education. You get to your early 50s and all of a sudden the kids might be gone, primarily the kids might be gone. You can start really saving for you. And that's when we can really create that plan that says, are we maxing out those retirement plans? If you don't have a retirement plan, are we maxing out those Roths? Can we get creative? Can we open up accounts that are going to make a difference? Can we talk about different tax buckets? Can we, open up our eyes to a little bit more education? And so that's what's really important to me, that every age can certainly take a financial advisor, and doesn't matter how much you have. My whole goal is to provide education and to provide advice. It's up to you whether or not you take it, but that's the key that I do on a daily basis.
I will say that it's been fun for Mark and I the last few years to shift from how on earth do we help 3 kids get through college to where's our next trip going to be. So that's our financial things have definitely changed in the last few years. So I know that you have a huge heart in terms of working with women, and especially those that are single. So can you just share a few statistics on women and finances and how you are kind of making sure that that particular group really has it on their radar to have a financial plan?
So ladies, this is one of the things that is really near and dear to my heart. I find that most of my appointments, if I can get you and your spouse in, that's fabulous. So many times I'm just meeting with men because women have so many other things to do. Sometimes the guys will come in and I'll be like, where's Celia? Well, she wanted to get on the treadmill this morning. I'm like, really? I'm important. I have good things to say, and I really want to share them with her too. So I find out that women are always pushing it off more so, and I know it's not interesting. the first thing on your mind. I mean, we have kids and grandkids and groceries and meals to plan, and we have schedules, and maybe we're meeting our friends for coffee, but our lives are full and complicated, and finances tend to go. But then it comes time for a divorce situation, and you may not even know what half might be. Or if we lose our spouse, you might not know where everything is. And so it's really important that we come to the table occasionally and we actually know where everything is and what some of these things mean. And you have to be able to have a relationship with your advisor so that that person is being called when the time is right if you haven't been coming on a regular basis. It's more fun if you're coming on a regular basis because that way we can, deepen that relationship and I can hear what's important to you too. But some of these things that I wanted to share statistically is that the 401k account balances for women tend to be 65% less than men. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. I'm sure you guys can think of a few of them, but I want to be able to give you the next statistic, which is in 2023, women's average salaries were still 84% of men's. So that kind of alludes to the first one I gave you. If we're making less, we're probably investing less. And of women ages 55 to 66, 50% of those have no personal retirement savings. And so we have to really consider some of these things about how are we going to be able to live in our future so that we're not so fixed on just one income source. Maybe Social Security is what people tend to think about. And that's not going to be enough for us to be able to have the lives that we have today, what we're used to. So we want to be able to save for that. Something else that I think is really important to understand is that women are most likely going to outlive men, which means that ladies, 43% of women live alone after 75. Almost half of women are alone after age 75. And the last statistic I wanted to say was 63% of the nursing homes, or let's call them retirement communities, 63% are women. And that's obviously because we tend to outlive our spouses and because we have such high statistics, as I mentioned. So when you think about those statistics, we're going to be on our own. We're going to need to have some financial education. We're going to need to have some sort of a plan in place. We're going to need to have assets to be able to draw from to help us get to our last days. And it's a lot more important that our money outlasts us than we outlast our money.
Thank you. I think that is such important information to share. And then lastly, you have a really cool group called Women in Wealth that has been awesome. I've been involved with it for a number of years now, and it forces me to actually go out once a month with just the girls and have fun. But I want you to talk about it just a moment and kind of what it is and how anyone who would like to come can get involved.
I have Women in Wealth every month. It's been going on for years, and we love it. I'm never going to let it go. I don't think I will ever let it go. But when we do it, the concept is because of what I've just been mentioning. Women aren't as financially literate, let's say. That doesn't sound very nice, but it's partly choice. But it's also complicated. Sometimes we just don't want to add one more thing to our plates, as I mentioned. So I really wanted this group to be more about what can I share in a 5 or 10 minute opportunity in front of these ladies when we get together. So it's really, we added the cocktails because it gets people out. So it's Women in Wealth cocktails. Everybody now, actually, because it's 4:30 to 6:30 most third Thursdays of the month, and everybody comes and buys their own cocktail, buys their own meal. Now we're all eating together. People are choosing to do that. So we're there. It's meant to be open from 4:30 to 6:30, so come late, leave early. But every month we're following the alphabet, which makes it a little bit more fun for all of us because I tend to go to the same place all the time. I'm pretty habitual that way. So now I can say that I have been to so many restaurants in Grand Rapids, and the cuisines are fun, and the decor is fun, and sometimes you can sit outside, sometimes we're in the back because we get loud. But this month, I don't even know if I can say this restaurant. So we're on the letter X. And this makes it really challenging, and this isn't my first X. I'm getting to be a pro at this. So it's an extra special place is what I normally would choose. This month I chose a Mexican grill. So, you know, we just get to do a little bit more fun things, and so we're on 28th Street at El Centennial Mexican Grill, and so we're gonna just have a lot of fun. It's this Thursday, and like I said, the third Thursday of every month. This week, so what makes it a little bit more fun too, in addition to the restaurant choices, is we have a core group. I depend on these ladies to come each time, but we have new ladies every time as well. And every once in a while, I joke that I can actually talk. I come prepared with something, but if I can get them to just silence for a few minutes, this week, we're gonna talk about financial happiness. And so again, coming prepared with something that I think is really important. We cover a lot of different topics. Sometimes they're a little bit more lighter. Sometimes I get a handout to them. But that is really the basis, is really trying to educate women. So my whole goal now this particular year is to be able to maybe do little mini workshops, seminars, webinars, because I think the important thing is if I can even start in the workplace and be able to do a lunch and learn or something, because I think it is important that women start to understand the basics, that they can even understand the benefits in their workplaces and their retirement plans, if they're getting a little bit more education or advice in that regard. So we can make it fun, but I'm ready to push that to the next level, because women, we need to, as I always say, you know, sit down at the table and be present.
I truly believe that everything, you know, the knowledge is power, and for the more that we know, the better choices that we can make, and not to mention just the camaraderie of friendships where you can discuss these things too and ask your questions without feeling dumb. It just is so important. So Shari, thank you so much for that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to Charles. So Charles, in the past, I've really talked a lot about kind of the 4 pillars of being a savvy senior. And one of those, of course, is having a solid financial plan that Shari just talked about. And another is having a solid legal plan. So legal plans are generally designed around protecting assets. And so the two can be very much intertwined. So when you first meet with a client, what are some of the questions that you would ask them to begin to determine their basic legal needs, and how much does that change whether someone is 50 versus 80?
Thank you. So my process is a little bit like Shari's. You want to get to know the clients very well. As a matter of fact, sometimes I feel like I'm part of the family after a while, so that's kind of fun. So some families I probably wouldn't want to be a member of. But just, that's everywhere. Okay, so one of the things is a philosophy. The philosophy of what I do is, you know, what is in your control, what is not in your control. That's really important. We don't have to, and there's my slide, okay. So, you know, some things are in our control, things we can, our thoughts basically, what we desire. This is kind of comes from the Stoic philosophy, which I really like a lot. And then there's some things that are not in our control, like our body. We get sick one day, or something, our reputation. Somebody could say something really bad about us and ruin our reputation. But if we kind of look at the graph there, the diagram, it says, you know, things that matter to you, things you can control. And where those intersect, that's where we should emphasize our planning. So that's my philosophy. And so, you know, you might know what things matter to you, and I need to find that out. But you also need to know, well, what things can I control? As a client, what things can I control? You know, I don't know, what can I do with estate planning? So we have a lot of questions that kind of go through that. Maybe go to the next slide. See that? So what are some things that you can plan for? Well, you can protect your children from different scenarios. For example, if you give an outright gift to someone and then they get sued, well, that money could be available to their creditors or a divorce. But what if you give it to them in a trust instead? It's protected. Credit shelter trust is protected from creditors. So that's a nice thing to do. If you've got a child that's getting government benefits and it has a means test, then if they inherit money, what does that do to their benefits? It knocks them off. SSI, for example, that's not a huge loss. It's, you know, it's money. But then if they lose the Medicaid health insurance, that could really be a disaster for them. And so that happens from time to time. People don't plan ahead, and someone inherits money and they get knocked off benefits. I'm sure you've heard about that many times. Yeah. So So that's a big part of what I do. Other thing is unproductive people. So some of our kids might not want to work very hard. And I've actually set this up for a couple clients where, you know, we'll match their earnings. So if they earn $30,000 during the year, we'll give them $30,000 from the trust. If they earn zero, guess what they get from the trust, right? So that's going to encourage them to work. And I think that client had quite a bit of wealth too, so he didn't need to worry about it too much, but he wanted to make sure they weren't idle. So, you know, those are the kind of things we go through more of those. You know, you can protect your spouse. Let's say you want to protect your spouse from lawsuits once you pass away. That'd be great for a life insurance policy. You have a $500,000 life insurance policy, put it in a trust for your spouse and no one can take it from them. Other things you can do, let's see here. Remarriage protection. So what if you're the Brady Bunch, okay, and you each have your own set of kids, and you pass away, and your surviving spouse says, "Well, I never liked those kids anyway. I'm going to disinherit them," right? So we can plan for that. So as far as the 50 versus 80, at 80, you know, most people at 50 are pretty healthy. Most people at 80 usually have a few health problems at that time. And we know how much assets you are going to have at 80 typically. You have all your assets. You're just kind of, you know, living off your savings and Social Security and pension, etc. But at 50, there's still a lot of unknowns. So you can still work for many years and earn things. So, but the other thing that's different, besides your health and your finances, is just the planning window. So, you know, there's some kind of planning, like Medicaid planning, where you need to do it ahead of time. And for ahead of time, it's typically 5 years. So if you have your crystal ball, you can say, when am I going to need Medicaid? And 5 years before that, you do the planning. But if you don't have a crystal ball, then you need to just plan ahead early enough. So that kind of thing, the more we talked about options, you said options. So money gives you options, and doing it earlier gives you more options too. I think that's pretty good for that.
So this is along the lines of the question that I asked Shari. I often talk with clients and I get this prevailing thought of, oh, we don't need a legal plan because we just don't, you know, we don't have that much. Or even people that are younger. Well, I have a listing that'll be going on the market today actually, and this person that passed was in her 40s. And it took 6 months to get the house both in order physically, but also in order legally, because it had to go through probate, because nobody expects a 40-year-old person to pass away. But the fact is, it would have saved her family a tremendous amount of challenges had she had a plan. And so, Charles, just talk about this idea of, regardless of wealth, how important is it to do some level of legal planning?
Yeah, it's very important. I've heard many people say, I don't have an estate, so I don't need to worry about it. Well, you know, I think you're going to talk next month about incapacity planning, but that's so important too, taking care of you while you're alive. So that, you know, don't forget that part, right? But then as far as making it easy for your family, you know, you're really hurting your kids or whomever's going to take over for you if you don't lay out, you know, some kind of planning so that they can take over. You know, I prefer trust because it makes things even smoother. If we have to go through probate, it's expensive. Most people can't do probate by themselves, and so they need to hire a lawyer. It costs $3,000 to $5,000 to do a probate. Married couples, typically, when one person passes away, we don't have to do much probate, typically, because everything is owned jointly. Not always, though, but that's typically the way it is. But when the second person passes away, then we have to do a full probate. As far as wealth goes, you know, if you have tens of millions of dollars, I mean, estate planning used to be about estate taxes. Does everybody remember when estate taxes were a big deal? So this year, the exemption is $13.99 million before you have to pay estate tax. Okay. So everybody over that, please see me after this.
Please see me first.
Well, she'll get you there if you're not there already, but I'll take care of you afterwards.
Darn, I'm only at 12 million.
Yeah, you're okay. Now, next year, if the law doesn't change, it's going to sunset and go back down to 7 million. So next year, you come see me, okay, Laura? But for now, yeah, we're good. So estate taxes is not an issue anymore. So what we do instead, estate planning attorneys and elder law attorneys, is we plan for incapacity. You know, helping you make sure that you don't lose all your assets if you have to go, you know, to a nursing home or get, you know, Medicaid waiver at home, those kind of services. There are ways, if you plan ahead, you can protect almost all of your assets. Married people have advantages. When you have a married couple, we can move money from the person that's going into the nursing home, we can move it to the well person. As long as they stay well. If they don't stay well, then it gets a little trickier. But so really, if you have $100,000, you have $200,000, that's a sweet spot for doing the benefits planning, because you want to spend down to $2,000, well, they just upped the number to $9,660. So in Michigan, for 2025, a single person can get Medicaid at $9,660. So, wow. But other than that, you have to spend your money down or do something else with it. So that's the kind of thing that you're not too poor or too rich to need some kind of estate plan.
And I'm just going to kind of skip around on these questions with that. So just clarify in terms of that Medicaid planning, even on things like gifting to your children, what's the amount of time that people really need to be aware of?
Right, so there's a 5-year look back for any gift that you give away. So if you give away $10,000 to each kid and you have 4 kids, that's $40,000 you gave away. And then if you apply for Medicaid anytime within the next 5 years, they're going to see that gift and they're going to penalize you. And they're basically going to penalize you for 3 months. They won't pay for your care. So you have to spend all your money down. You'll be eligible for Medicaid, but they will not pay for 3 months. That's called the penalty period. And you're kind of out of luck. Hopefully the kids will pay you back or pay for your time. So that's the kind of thing, gifting, even though like the IRS has gifting limits, right? You can give up to, is it $19,000 this year, $20,000, whatever it is. But Medicaid says no gifts like that. Really, tithing maybe, and birthday gifts, those kind of things. But other than that, you really can't give away gifts. So great question.
So one thing that this just kind of comes to mind is how important it is to not just have a legal advisor, or a financial advisor, or a realtor. It's this idea that they all talk to each other. And so I often have an email chain that involves Shari, who is my financial advisor, along with my accountant, along with, sometimes our attorney as well, and involving those people, because it's not uncommon for us to say, hey, let's possibly do this, and then one of them will chime in, oh, no, you can't do that, because that's going to then affect this over here that we hadn't even thought about. So this idea of having professionals who can bounce ideas off each other, because there's so much to know in any one area, that it's really important to have the person in that area that is knowing the changing amounts for some of those, those limits and those laws that can chime in and say, oh no, that won't work and we need to go back to plan A for this reason. So Charles, what I'm also kind of hearing is this idea that doing a trust up front is probably less expensive than having a home go through probate.
Yeah, that's correct. That's my experience. You pay a little more now, and you pay less later. And part of the reason why that works so well is you create the trust, and then you put all the stuff into the trust. So, either the trust is the beneficiary of your accounts, or it owns your accounts, it owns your real property. If you have a cottage up north or something like that, we can put that into a trust. And it owns all that, so we don't have to go through probate. And you don't need, it's much simpler to administer a trust than it is to administer a will and try to find where everything is. Because when you have a will, you don't have everything set up to work together the same way.
And I'm going to kind of combine 2 questions before we head into Matt's talk, because I want to make sure that we have questions, time for questions at the end. But one, if you have a trust set up, what are the benefits of putting your home in the trust or not putting your home in a trust? And then can you also talk about this idea of asset protection trusts? I know there are attorneys in our area that really talk about avoiding nursing home poverty and how to do all that, but those trusts can also be very expensive to set up. So how does one determine, what do they really, when do those things make sense, and when does it make sense to actually spend more money on a more expensive legal plan for these specialized trusts?
Sure. So what I like to think is, as far as putting the house in the trust, for married couples, I typically do not put the house into the trust. I keep it owned by the marriage, and we do what's called a ladybird deed to the trust. So that provides some asset protection, because if a married couple owns a property and one of them gets sued, they can't foreclose on the house, okay? Because the other person's not liable and it's owned by the marriage. So that's called tenancy by the entireties. So that's a built-in legal form of asset protection. Now, if it's a single person, we often do put the house into the trust because there's no reason not to. We can also do a ladybird deed as well. And the idea was, well, if we do a ladybird deed and the trust doesn't own it, we could refinance the house, whatever, line of credit. But lately, banks don't let us do it anyway, even if they're just a ladybird deed, so we still have to manipulate that. There's also a trick for Medicaid. If married couples have their home in a trust, when they start to apply for Medicaid, they can actually maximize their exemption amount. So it can go up to $157,000 can be exempted. If they don't have the house in the trust, then they're allowed to keep half of whatever they have. So let's say they have $200,000, they can keep $100,000, you have to spend down $100,000. But just by putting the house, which is exempt, into this trust, again, it's kind of an accounting trick, but it does allow us to maximize their exempted amount. And then as far as asset protection trusts, I'm not super aggressive with those, but I do believe they're very important for two scenarios. You have a second piece of real property, like a cottage up north or a rental property, we can put that into the irrevocable trust, because remember, Medicaid lets you qualify with one home and one car, okay? So one home is exempted. The only risk of that is if you pass away and they've paid for your care, they're going to try to come after your house in what's called a state recovery. And the way to avoid that is to make sure the house doesn't go through probate, okay? So second piece of real property into the irrevocable asset protection trust. And if you have a brokerage account, put into the irrevocable asset protection trust. It has to be a brokerage account, not an IRA or a 401k. You cannot put those into a trust, okay? So if you have $500,000 in an IRA and a house, you don't need one of those trusts. If you have a cottage up north and you also have, or that'd be enough, or if you also have a $500,000 or $300,000 brokerage account, we can put that in an asset protection trust and start the 5-year look back. So that after 5 years, you don't have to spend any of that money down. It can be used for your benefit in other ways, and you don't have to burn it up.
So I'm hearing it's pretty important to help us save our money that we've earned by working with people who know all the ins and outs of those rules. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Matt, because as we all know, it's been incredible over the last few years, the amount of scams that are out there. And I feel like there's just nothing more heartbreaking than hearing about a senior who has worked their whole lives and then been swindled out of a substantial amount of money. So what are some of the statistics on how much money specifically seniors are losing annually to scams?
Yeah, so we'll start back, and so I had to do some digging on this, and great question. So first of all, we talked about, like, everybody on the stage was, this is how you're going to accumulate the wealth and protect the wealth, but outside of that, you got fraudsters that are trying to get in there, right? The numbers of generational wealth that's leaving this country is staggering. So if we just look back to 2023, there was $10 billion with a B, $10 billion in losses that were reported from scams. Now that's if we get into a little later, we'll talk about the reporting on it and how we encourage folks to report these scams and these frauds. But last year, it increased to $12.5 billion. That's a 25% increase, right? So you're talking year over year. This is not going to slow down, right? The fraudsters are knowing that Americans have saved and accumulated all this money. Hopefully you're working with Shari on stage here to accumulate all this money, but we want to protect it, right? So that's kind of diving into some of the next things. So Statistics on folks that are over 70, they're losing about $1,000 a month to scams. Right? So think about that. If you have enough discretionary income, can you afford to lose $1,000 a month to scammers? I hope the answer is no. And if it is yes, you're not just funding a scammer, you're funding some type of evil, right? That those scams go to fund a variety of things we won't get into, but drug trafficking, human trafficking, drug trade, you name it, they're funding that. So some of the most common scams that we're seeing out there targeting seniors are imposter scams, online shopping scams, and investment scams. With investment scams usually being the most lucrative for these fraudsters, because I mean, if they have a bucket of money over here that's got $1,000 in it, and they got a bucket of money over here for $10,000, they're going for the $10,000 one, right? Those are really some quick stats on it.
Hey Matt, and this wasn't on your question, but can you kind of just talk a little bit about what would one of those investment scams look like?
Sure. So investment scams are you're given an opportunity. So depending on how they can contact you in a variety of ways, whether it's somebody you know in person, whether it's an email, a text, however you got contacted. They got this great opportunity. It might be crypto related. It might be, hey, we have this business opportunity where you're investing on the ground floor of this upstart company, right? But we're not going to go through the traditional stock market or buying through a broker. This is on the ground level, so we're going to need some cash up front. Those are the type of things they're doing. If it's too good to be true, so some of the things that I talk about in here, if the opportunity is too good to be true, look into it, right? There's a term, when I was in the military, there's a term called bunker buddy, right? Anybody in here familiar with the term bunker buddy? Show hands, maybe a couple. So a bunker buddy doesn't have to be somebody who's in the bunker with you. It's somebody that you just bounce your ideas off. Somebody that, hey, I got this random text message or I got this email for this opportunity. Would you take a look at this and tell me, does this make sense? Am I missing something? That's your bunker buddy. So we encourage people to check with their bunker buddies on these things. Reach out to a family or friend. It could be a family member. It could be your grandson. He's looking at this going, Grandma, come on, this is, we all know this is a scam. You're falling for this, right? But the investment scams in and of themselves, it's when people say, I need $10,000 for startup, for the startup opportunity, for startup costs, or I need $20,000, $30,000. That's where these fraudsters are getting those big dollar ticket, big ticket items out.
It's frustrating though, because I feel like I'm fairly discerning, and yet I waste a tremendous amount of time, sometimes looking at emails, sometimes looking at text messages, and trying to determine, gosh, this one sounds kind of real, Oh my God, they're, shutting down my Facebook account, and then I'll talk to somebody and they're like, oh, come on, but they get better and better. And even the most recent one, I got one on my phone in regards to, unpaid tolls. And hopefully you all know about that. But the fact is, over the years, we have received those in the mail where we've had children that were driving through those areas. So, we got things that were legitimate. So sometimes it can be hard to determine what are actually legitimate and what is, not. So what are some of the best practices that you recommend to older adults so that they can monitor their finances for any unusual or fraudulent activity?
Yeah, so best practices are really just know your stuff, right? Know your accounts, know what bills are being paid, know what funds you have coming in. So check your bank accounts, your bank statements on a monthly basis. I mean, I'd argue you probably check them like once a week. Because what the fraudsters are doing is they'll find that account number out there on the dark web, and they'll just start pinging random account numbers and see which ones go through. So you might have an ACH just pulled out of your account for $5, and you're like, oh, it's $5, I don't really care. What they're doing is testing, right? They're out there just casting the line, fishing a little bit, and they go, ooh, I got $5, I got a live one on this account. Now I'm going to try to hit it for $5,000, right? Yeah, that's a little more painful, that $5,000. So. That's one of the things that we recommend. Set up alerts. So if you get login alerts, so we're all in Michigan here, and if you get a login alert that comes out of California, it means your information has been compromised. Somebody's logging into your account. Or alerts that if dollar amounts leave your account, you're going to get alert for this, right? Or spending alerts. So there was your debit card was run at this said store for $500. You had an alert set for anything over $200. Those alerts are good. It keeps us on top of our information. Shred important information. So we're still getting a lot of mail these days, right? Unfortunately, the mailmen still keep coming, but it has important information on there. It could be just partial. It could be your first name, last name. It could have an address on there. Some of them could include maybe the partial social security number or a partial account number. Shred that stuff. Because what the fraudsters are doing is they're getting pieces and parts of that, and they're putting a puzzle together. They're painting a puzzle of each one of you individually with your account numbers, your social security numbers, everything to access your online in your funds. Secure your personal information. So again, this kind of goes hand in hand with shredding. Consult trusted advisors. So the folks that are on the table and on the stage up here. So consult your attorneys, your CPAs, your financial planners. Work with them. Make sure that they understand what your directives are and what you want to do. So when that random directive comes into Shari that says, "Hey Shari, I'm changing things up and I want to send $20,000 over to here." So Shari's going, "Well, yeah, was that Beverly that got a hold of me or was it not?" So set up, trusted relationships. So and Shari knows who to contact to call a number. She's not just going to take a random email or text message to move that money. Be cautious with unsolicited offers. If you're not actively out there looking for something, somebody just comes to you, put on your cautious lens. Scrutinize everything they're telling you. Even if it's a family member, because family members will scam you. Unfortunately, that's the day and age we live in. Where there's some family members that we know. That's Bill's son. Well, Bill's son's going to scam you, right? So just watch out for that kind of stuff. Register on the do not call list. We know that all doesn't work that great, but you have to re-register your phone number every year, so keep that on there. One thing I want to mention about that is kind of one of the other questions is, an example of a scam that just really kind of bugs me and that is easy to stop is does everybody get these text messages where it's something important like, "Hey, I left the soup on the stove." Right? You got something silly that you'll start getting these, or it's something that's going to give you a sense of urgency. And this kind of goes again with the story. Is my mother is just the kindest soul, and she responds to these things. I go, "Mom, what are you doing?" She said, "Well, somebody just sent a text message that there was soup on the stove, and I didn't want their house, so I let them know it. Hey, got the wrong number." I said, "Well, you're going to expect more of these text messages." She says, "Well, that's not fair. That's I shouldn't just block these numbers. What if this person?" I said, "Mom, when is the last time that you sent a text message to somebody that you would let into your home that wasn't already saved in your contacts? This person did not type this number in, or this person did not pull up a context. They typed this number in. They didn't fat finger and transpose a couple numbers. You are being scammed. You are being targeted." It's the same thing that goes when you get these phone calls or a voicemail that says, "Oh, I'm going to be late for dinner," or these things like that. Block the number. Report it as scam. On every one of our phones, you can report these as scam. Block the number. And I encourage everybody here to block the numbers. You're not going to offend anybody. Trust me. All you're going to do is offend some scammers, and that's okay with me.
Okay, a couple things. One, I want to do a shout out to Shari does an amazing shredding event every single year, and that's going to go on. What's the date of that, Shari?
It's coming up June, Thursday, June 9th, I think. Let me look real quick, but it is coming up that Thursday in June, and it's going to be 4 to 7.
Yep. So put that on your calendars, and I'm sure just go see her because she'll have more details on that. But that is always good practice to shred everything. And then just a quick thing that we had gone through earlier in the year, I am always watching our accounts, and I started to get pinged with these DoorDash charges. And I'm like, well, that's weird. So I reach out to all my children. I'm like, hey, who's ordering DoorDash? I've never ordered DoorDash. And there's $5 and $6, and then one for like $16. And the frustrating part was then we got a new debit card. And when you have your debit card out on certain sites where it's automatic or whatever, and then you update your card, there's something in there that then they can get the new card number, and I don't really know how that goes, but I went through like 3 different new numbers because then we still got charges, and it was because it was automatically updating on some site, which was super frustrating. So can you talk about that? Is that something that you're aware of?
Yeah, the data leaks, what you're referring to is you have sites out there that they store your information, so like Jimmy John's or Papa John's Pizza was the most, I guess, recent prevalent one. But we had, you go to Jimmy John's and you want to order a pizza, they ask for some account information. well, I order Jimmy John's once every 2 weeks. I don't want to retype this in, so I'm going to load in my bank account information to that. So it's automatic, right? Papa John's gets a breach, meaning that like somebody hacked into their system, stole all the client data, all client information, including a bank account numbers, credit card numbers, like all the good stuff that goes with that. So what they're doing is they're taking that information, whether it's login information or those account numbers, and they're hitting them and seeing if they can get money out of that. So unfortunately, you had the somebody's getting free DoorDash from your account for a while, and the recommendation of that would be to shut down the actual account itself and open a new account. Because that account number's out there, it's been compromised. That debit card number that's tied to that, those are, we cycle through those quite a bit, right? The fraudsters are, they tend to get those, we cycle through and replace them. But those account numbers, get a new one on that.
So before we head into questions, I'm going to just say, do you have any personal stories of anyone that you've worked with that you could share with this group that was particularly compelling?
Unfortunately, there's because cases are still active and going on, but there are several. One of them that you had mentioned in here was that we had talked about was the grandmother situation, or the grandchild situation who's been kidnapped or who has been in a car accident. When you heard about the car accident, everybody knows about that. The recent twist to that was before, so if you don't know, so it would be, hey grandma, this is Billy, I was in a terrible car accident, somebody was injured, I need you to speak to my attorney. And then Charles would get on the phone pretending to be an attorney. He'd get on the phone and say, hey, Mrs. Beverly, yes, this is Billy's attorney, he's been in a terrible car accident, the judge is going to post bail for $30,000, are you able to help out? We'd like to keep this, because of your family status in the community, we want to keep this, kind of low key. So I'd like you to, not tell anybody about this. Okay, and so they play along. So they would go to the bank and they take out as much as they could in cash and go to the other bank and take money. And so, or they would wire that money. Historically, what they would do is just wire that money and transfer it electronically. Now, what the fraudsters are having them do is take the cash out, and then they're given a drop spot location to put this money in. So you're talking $30,000 in a 75-year-old woman's purse. Right? Well, then they're calling and saying, oh, by the way, we have somebody in your area from the bail bondsman. Can they just swing by your house and pick this up? So you're a 75-year-old woman in the country living alone, and somebody is coming over to your house to pick up $30,000 in cash. That makes me uneasy, right? These folks were saying, oh, by the way, I might have COVID, so I'll be wearing a mask. They have sunglasses on and they have, a hat pulled down tight. They come in, they give them a signed hand receipt for the $30,000 in cash and say, your grandson will be released as far as we can tell, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. No, that doesn't stop there. They continue to do this, and well, the judge upped the bail, upped the bond. So these have happened, I said it was like 2 months ago here in Michigan, where it happened enough times where the state police were involved that I believe they have a suspect that they're going after, but those are the kind of scary stories where it's like, to me personally, when they're showing up to your house, it's one thing when they're doing this stuff electronically. When they're showing up to your house, that's terrifying to me.
I think the thing that gets me is the fact that you would think that some of these sound so hokey and unbelievable that it would be really easy to spot. But we've been amazed in talking with our friends. We've had, a couple situations where grown children really fell for things that they said it was so real. These people were so convincing. And these are very, very smart people that fell through these things. So lastly, a lot of it I hear does go unreported simply because people are embarrassed. They feel like they should have known better, or if there was a situation where something was done by a family member. So what would you tell somebody that maybe something's happened to them and they just feel so bad about reporting it?
Yeah, so one thing we encourage folks is, as a fraud response officer, I can't chase down the bad guys and try to get your money back unless I know it happened, right? So we encourage folks to report this to their bank. So if it's on their bank account, something's fishy on your bank account, call your bank. Call the number that you've been dealing with, or go into the branch and talk to them, right? But then from that, big picture, we as a country need to start reporting this stuff. So there's a couple websites. The FBI runs a website called ic3.gov, just India Charlie, the number 3.gov. That's run by the FBI, and what they really focus on cyber crimes and internet-related crimes. But then there's another one we ask people to go to. So it's reportfraud.ftc.gov. I apologize for not getting these in the slides, but, and that's really more of a broader range of frauds and scams. So we ask you to report those, and we encourage this, number one, so you've been scammed, you got taken for a couple $1,000, guess what, you multiply that by 100, that same fraudster is doing this 100 different times, right? We're funding evil, we're funding that terrorism organization, we're funding things that we really don't want to be funding, and you just lost money too. So let's stop, this from happening to other folks and start the reporting process. It's super easy. If you're at any time you do fall victim of a scam or something like this, and you need help filling this out, go into your local branch, your local bank that you deal with, and they can help you fill this stuff out.
Awesome. Okay, I am sure that some of you probably have your own questions. So before we get into any of the drawings, we're going to go ahead and just open it up for questions. Hey, right back there.
Yes, this question is for Matt. I've seen on TV ads for home title lock. And then also recently I saw on Rocky Squire something about Kent County has this fraud notified thing. I called Kent County Registrar of Deeds and they said, oh, it's not good. So what do you recommend? Should we get something like home title lock or?
Yeah, and what that home title lock is, if you're not familiar, it's basically you have a mortgage in place. It prevents somebody else from kind of stepping in and taking that mortgage or selling that mortgage out from underneath you. It's a more recent scam that's going on. So I would encourage to get something similar. I don't know about specifically that home title lock itself, but something to at least frequently check. It's kind of similar to my other point of monitor your information, monitor your assets. You're checking your bank account, double check that your house and your mortgage is still in fact yours, and that those fraudsters haven't snuck in there and somehow gotten it out of there. Good question though.
I've also heard that some different townships and things like that you can do some version of a registration so that nothing can be changed without a signature.
Yeah, you would think that would be initial, that would be like standard, but yeah, as far as I know, I think some are making it more mandatory.
One thing that I have heard myself too is when they call you, be very conscious of those phone calls if you tend to answer them. They're trying to get your name or trying to get you to say the word yes so that they can record you and then they can say that you did approve something. So if you don't recognize the number, just be careful what you're saying on the phone. Try not to use your name or the word yes, and maybe you have something more.
No, that's why I just say don't answer the phone. Just don't answer these. If you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. I mean, I would argue there's probably 20, 30 people you know that you have those numbers saved in your phone. If it's not one of them, they'll leave a message, right? If it's important enough, they'll leave you a message.
Okay, we're going to go back there.
Yeah. I'm not saying the word yes. That was true 10 years ago. Now it's any word. If you say any word, they can use that to fake you. And that's generally available technology. It doesn't require that Russian FSB. 10 years ago, that don't say yes. Yeah, right. Don't pick up the phone. It took me 3 years to teach my mom to do that. Yeah, but it's not my voice saying, yeah, your relative on the answering machine. Yeah, don't pick it up.
I will also say too, like anytime you're going through any kind of financial transaction, like oftentimes when we're working with someone to sell a home, I will absolutely tell them this will open you up in a sense for sometimes getting scammers. They see people that are selling homes. They might get additional things in the mail that look like very realistic types of invoices. I always tell them, don't ever pay something without talking to us. We will walk you through this transaction in such a way that there should be no surprises, that you will know everything that's coming, and it's coming from our team, and we're talking to the title company. So you are only talking to us, and if there's anything that we didn't already prep you for, please run it by us because it may not be legitimate. So just working with those professionals, once again, in every sense, to question the things that you are getting to make sure that they are legitimate. So, right there.
I'm sure I'm not alone, but I continue to get texts, political texts. They know my name, and at least 10 a day. And I know you should block the phone numbers, but it just doesn't seem to work to let, you delete and report scam, but it goes on and on and on. And they know my name, and that really is weird.
Yeah, no, you're doing the right thing. Just continue to block those numbers, continue to delete them, report them as spam. The more we report this, the more that Apple and Google or whatever phone, they put it in a database, and so when those start coming through, they stop them before they go out to anybody else. That's at least the way it's supposed to work. You can block them. You can block them on your phone in your individual device. I mean, there should be some pop-up to block right away. You can block every single one of those that come in.
They will call you on a different number continuously, but just be diligent. Be diligent. Okay, I thought that was somebody back there.
I got
Okay.
I had a Christmas card stolen from the mail. And I didn't realize it because my grandson hadn't cashed it. And I got a balance change in the bank that I look at every day for several $1,000s. And so I called the bank and they said, well, come on into the branch. So I did. What happened is a person rewrote the check. They took off the name I put and the amount. My initial, my signature was still on the bottom. Everything was perfect except to whom it was. And the bank cashed the check. How can the bank cash the check? It was for $6,900.
Matt?
It happens. It's whitewashing the check. So mail fraud is huge. It's still a common fraud. So,
But I want to report it to the police.
yes, I'm hoping that your bank is already
I
working with you.
don't think so. At first they acted like it, and then they said, well, we get this a lot.
I'm thinking you need a new bank.
We know somebody back there, Amy. I guess, I don't know the specifics on that, but it sounds like your bank, I would hope at that dollar amount that they're filing what's called a suspicious activity report, they're doing an investigation on that. Somebody stole that check and whitewashed it. That is very common. It's a very
I never
common.
heard of it before.
Yep. So what these criminals were doing is they're stealing, and they were actually robbing the postal employees, and they're stealing their keys. And you're going, well, why their keys? Because they have what's called an arrow key, and the arrow key opens up all the post office boxes, all of them. So they weren't necessarily going for that key. What they wanted was access to the mailbox. So then the fraudsters were coming back, and they're not taking all the mail. They're thumbing through, and they're finding businesses that were writing checks. So if you're writing checks today, please stop. Like, checks are bad. Checks are archaic. You should not be writing checks in today's day and age. They are not secure because of what you just
Well, how can I give a gift if they live out of state?
You can send a wire, you can send ACH, there's external transfers, you can transfer money electronically that's secure to your grandson. You have his account number, you set it up, and it's super secure, it's fast. They get their money instantly versus...
Well, what I did was I had a check that had a duplication. My checks are duplicated. The bank wanted me to have some proof. Well, most people don't have proof when they write out a check. I did. I got my money back because of the insurance.
Yep.
But I still want the police to get that person.
Yes,
And it
absolutely.
was a bank in town.
Yep, and if they have filed their proper paperwork, that report goes to a reporting agency, and then they are notified. So I don't know, in your case, I don't know if a police report was opened up or not. We'd have to look.
So I don't open the police report.
No, you could open the police report. If the bank has not done anything on it, you could definitely go down to the law enforcement and say, hey, this was the situation, I'd like to open a police report on it.
I
And they're
thought
gonna,
they'd blow me off and say, oh, well, we've had this before, you know.
no, they wouldn't, I don't believe they'd blow you up.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, we're gonna do these two questions, and then we're gonna go slightly over, because we do have several drawings to do, and we know we want to get to that, so I'll do you, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
All right, question for Charles. We have a trust. spouses are beneficiaries, our kids are, you know, the secondary beneficiaries. We put our house on the trust, and then we just alerted our insurance company that, hey, by the way, here's our trust. We had quite a discussion with them, does the trust own the house, does he own the house, or, you know, it caused a lot of confusion. What should be done, or are we clear?
Okay, well, so if the trust is the owner of the house, and then you want to add the trust as an additional insured with the insurance company, that's all you need to do. So you should verify that.
Oh, okay, quick, I want to share something. I'm retired, and I had a part-time job about a year or so ago. I went to that part-time job. Prior to going, I stopped at one of these drive-through. I don't usually go to Arnie's, but I'm just sharing this because for everybody. I went to Arnie's, bought some food, went to that part-time job. Within less than 2 hours, my bank, I got a text message stating, did you Grubhub or whatever the heck?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like, I don't do Grubhub. So immediately I called my bank. They canceled the card. And I handed them my card. So now I do Apple Pay. I don't give my card to just, if I'm at a drive up. If I'm inside, make sure you are looking at everything that person's doing. But in the meantime, they had got into my checking account and taking, first they did, I think 50 or 100. Then they did 1,000 something. And I talked to the 1-800 number of my bank, and they gave me some explanations as to why they'll go little, like you had mentioned, they'll go little with an amount, and then they'll go large. So the thing is, I have alerts. My alert is $50. Anything, you know, I would not even do 100. I'd stay at 50, and automatically when I'm buying something, my phone will bing and tell me that this has been charged, this, that, and that's all. I hope I explained it properly, but you have to be careful with drive-through and them taking your card.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice and things that honestly we wouldn't even necessarily think about, and especially as we're going through our busy days, you know, so important. So, all right, you guys, I just want to give a huge round of applause for you guys. So much good information. Do you feel like you learned some stuff today?